Right, welcome guys. It was the 20th year anniversary of AVP the other day. And to celebrate that, the director, Paul W.S. Anderson, sat down with Forbes and did a really interesting interview. As you can see here, it's quite a wide-ranging interview. And I thought it was worthwhile just kind of taking a look at just for a bit of fun, to be honest. You know, he sits down to talk about AVP. He also shares his advice for an eventual reboot. His advice is just have fun with it. No. You need to have some level of fun, but you need to take the material seriously. You did not take the material seriously. Neither did 20th Century Fox. And that's why those films are not exactly held in the highest of regard. But I thought we'd just take a look because this is interesting. Right, at least it's interesting to me anyway. So, yeah, let's dive into this. Please do hit subscribe if you are new here, or indeed a returning viewer that's not yet subscribed. And if you like what I do, and you keep coming back, then consider supporting further via my Patreon, which you can find linked down below in the description box. You get hundreds of hours of extra content there for as little as $2 a month. So it's nothing. And I don't really talk about it enough. I really should. So yeah, hop down below and support just that little bit further. But anyway, let's dive into this right now, shall we? So, yeah, let's dive into it. Right. Says this, a little over 2 decades after they first clashed on screen in writer-director Paul W.S. Anderson's Alien vs. Predator, it seems the Xenomorph and Yautja are gearing up for a long-awaited rematch that will shake the cosmos to its very core. No, not true, actually. Not really a rematch, to be fair. What they seem to be building towards is just the establishment that, hey, these potential individuals could cross over in a movie. Not that they'll be pitted against one another in a really contrived way like AVP. So no, not strictly speaking in the way that they're saying here. So it says this, nothing's been confirmed of course, but the teaser trailer for Predator Badlands seems to hint at a fresh crossover between the two legendary genre franchises, blah, 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 blah. Again, not really true. It just hints and establishes further, again, that they are still in the same universe. That's all it is. Anyway, a loose adaptation of the Elseworld-style Dark Horse comic book series of the same name, Alien vs. Predator, riffs on the Ancient Aliens concept, with a story centered around an expedition to an ancient temple hidden deep beneath the ice shelf of Antarctica. The mission funded by Lance Henriksen's Peter Weyland, half of the Shady Weyland-Yutani, goes disastrous for the hapless humans when they're just caught in a fight, basically. Interestingly, AVP grossed nearly $200 million worldwide. Pretty terrible, to be fair. It's not great. It had a production budget of $60 million, so it wasn't horrendous, but it wasn't great either. You know? $200 million means that they would have earned about $100 million from that. So, probably would have lost money. But anyway, you know, yeah, it's gained a bit of a cult following. Whatever. It's not a great film. Who cares? So, we'll just scroll through this, right? Because it's interesting. Josh asked him, has your relationship to AVP changed at all over the last 20 plus years? 2+ decades, that's hard to believe. Listen, I'm a lifelong Alien fan. I saw the first movie when I was still at school. It terrified the hell out of me and helped to reinforce my love of strong female leads. Lol. Which I've tried to carry on through my career. Yeah, just chucking your wife in everything, you pleb. I was also a great lover of Predator, the Arnold Schwarzenegger version. That's the version. What are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. And while the Danny Glover sequel was kind of flawed, I felt like it missed Arnold, I was still a big fan of that as well. I had also been a big fan of the Dark Horse comic book series. I'd read all of the graphic novels. It was a franchise that I was very, very excited about now at that point in my career. I had come off Resident Evil, which I'd written and directed, and had a meeting with my agents. They said, what do you want to do next? Would you want to go out and work on something else that's not your own? And I said, I don't know if I'm really interested in that, but maybe if it was Alien vs. Predator, I'd do it. A couple months later, they said, well, guess what? They're starting to talk about an Alien vs. Predator movie. Do you have any ideas? I did have an idea. So I went in, pitched it to John Davies, who was the main producer on it, and then pitched that to Fox, and we were off to the races. Terrible. And his pitch. Was your original pitch very different from the final movie? No. It was pretty much the same. Good times. It was all rooted in an Alien and Predator mythology. Although they were Fox's franchises, I felt like I was pitching something fresh to them, having to persuade them to make the movie. They were like, do we really want to do this? Because Alien Resurrection and Predator 2 had been seen as disappointments. They were kind of seen as two moribund franchises. Also, there had been several other attempts to do an AVP movie. Roland Emmerich had been attached for a while. There had been other scripts, other directors, and none of them had gone anywhere. So I felt like they needed a fresh, radical take that would both honour the existing franchises and reinvigorate them. Amazing. And that's what we came up with. Jesus. I wanted to do it on Earth because I felt like Alien Resurrection was leading up to that point. So you went back in time. What? We already know that the Predator functions on Earth and uses it as a hunting ground. So my story wove those facts together and brought in the Eric Van Daniken Chariots of the Gods themes, which felt very organic to both franchises. For Predator, it was easy because you knew predators had been visiting the Earth for a long time. The aliens you didn't know about, but the first Alien movie had concept art of a pyramid that with these wonderful Aztec meets alien designs. Originally, the Nostromo crew was going to discover the alien ship traveled to this pyramid, and there they would find the alien eggs. That got cut for budgetary reasons, and Ridley said, well, let's just have the cave with the eggs underneath the spaceship. But this idea of the pyramid always stuck with me. Obviously, pyramids are a very earth-bound piece of architecture. And I was like, well, what if that pyramid came from Earth? What? Well, what if that pyramid came from Earth? Oh, right, the pyramid ain't alien. Right, I get it. Sorry. That was really the starting point for the idea of the pyramid buried under the ice in Antarctica. Amazing. So the reason for Antarctica was twofold. One, I think the Alien franchise in a harsh environment. You can't get much more harsh than outer space, but the fact that they use the Antarctic for testing space vehicles, the Mars rover was tested in Antarctica because it's the harshest place on Earth. So if you're going to have these creatures in a harsh environment, you can't get any harsher than Antarctica. Two, the idea that the pyramid was buried under the ice and was a secret felt like something that could be covered up, just like the Predators were covered up in the Predator movies. This was an opportunity to stay true to the Alien movies, because in the Alien movies, no one has publicly seen a xenomorph before. But the Weyland-Yutani Corporation is keeping secrets, and who knows how far back those secrets go. Technically true. So I thought Antarctica gave me the isolation to be able to tell that story on Earth and stay true to the movies that had come before. Fair. So, continues further and just says, speaking of Antarctica, would you say you were inspired by John Carpenter's The Thing and H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountain of Madness? The Thing for sure, because I was already a Carpenter fan and had worked with Kurt Russell already on Soldier. When it comes to At the Mountains of Madness, interestingly, I'd read quite a bit of H.P. Lovecraft, and I never read that novella. So, when people mentioned At the Mountain of Madness to me, it was always after the fact. And then, of course, I look at the movie and go, oh my god, of course. Anyway. So here's his thoughts on some interesting bits and pieces. It says, what makes the Alien franchise work? What makes the Predator franchise work? And what was the challenge of blending the two together? So here's his thoughts. Let's, again, kind of just seeing, I guess, like where they went wrong or where they went right. Because he was the one that pitched it. I went back, studied the movies, and realised the high points of the two franchises are probably the first Predator and the first two Alien movies. That's fair. What do they have in common? The late arrival of the creatures. So one of the things I wanted to do was hold back on the reveal of the creatures and hint at them. There's a suggestion that the satellite in the beginning is actually the silhouette of an alien queen. And there's also an allusion to the Predator earlier as well. But you don't actually show the creatures until the beginning of the second act. The main difficulty was identified by a journalist who I was talking to at the time. He said, how does it feel to have been handed the poison chalice? I totally got what he meant. There's so much fan anticipation that it's hard to fulfill those expectations. In a way, you're bound to disappoint, because in everyone's mind, they've been imagining what this movie is. It's like shark versus bear, which is better. People are fascinated by Batman versus Superman. You've got a lot of Batman fans who think Batman should kick Superman's ass, and vice versa. Trying to find the right balance was probably the biggest challenge. You were asking how my relationship with the movie has changed. I feel like a lot of movies I've made. So, what interestingly, I think that's a lazy answer to be like, well, I'm always doomed to fail. No, you're not doomed to fail. That is nonsense. That is nonsense. Like, that's a lazy response. Anyway, sorry, just continues further. And says, I've kind of gotten used to this. Get a bashing when they first come out, but then 10, 20 years later, there's a real reassessment. I'm always pleased that they get pleasantly reassessed. I also felt Event Horizon was overlooked when it was first released, and I'm really pleased with the reception and cult following that it has got. I feel like AVP fits into that mold as well. A friend of mine worked on the Prey movie, said, "We're looking at your movie all the time for the Predator laser sighting to see what you did. It's nice to know that the ripples continue." In many ways, AVP did bring those two moribund franchises back. For a while, it was the biggest grossing entry in either franchise. It really relaunched both of them. And then killed them. Anyway, did you have a specific idea for an AVP sequel involving the newly born Predalien? So the graphic novels, this is interesting anyway, his idea of a sequel. The graphic novels had taken the alien into a small town environment. That was the idea I was hinting at. The spaceship would crash back down to Earth and more chaos would ensue. Fox knew the movie was going to be very successful, and as soon as it opened, they said, okay, let's go. Let's make another one. I'd written the script at that point, and they set this very aggressive timeline, wanting to go into production immediately. I didn't want to do that because I'd given 2 years of my life to Aliens and Predators, and I delivered a movie I was really proud of. If we were going to do a sequel, I didn't want to rush it. I also felt like it would be great for me to make something slightly different rather than just being slam dunked into the same thing. But mainly, I didn't want to feel like we didn't deliver the best possible product we could have done. And I didn't feel like I could do that on the timeline that was being proposed. So I backed out of it. And because of that, they had to go find a different filmmaker, a different take on it. The concept remained the same, with a Predalien coming to Earth in a small town environment, which is pretty much what I set up. But obviously, it required a different script and different filmmakers. So it still ended up taking them longer than they'd originally wanted. I felt like that wasn't the movie it should have been either. I was disappointed in the sequel because I felt like there was very much a vibrant franchise to be had combining the two creatures. Did you have a specific set pieces in mind? There were pieces of my original screenplay that we didn't shoot for budgetary reasons. They were basically going back in time to see the Predator on Earth a little bit more, because in the final movie you only see 2 time periods, the Aztec period, present day. I wanted to have some midway marker points, the first of which would be in the snow, in the Battle of the Bulge. If you were going to have some American GIs coming into contact with the Predator, that would have been very cool. That would have been cool. That's fair. The other one was basically going to be in the same time period as Prey, a sequence that had Native Americans and Predators. I didn't know if that was something that influenced the development of Prey, but that was definitely a 2-page sequence in the original screenplay that we took out. They would have been flashbacks and would have explained that there was a growing knowledge in the American military-industrial complex that Predators existed. When Wayland launches the expedition, he's going in with these 2 guys who have guns. He knew that they're not just on a scientific expedition. Okay, I can dig some of that. That's quite interesting. Anyway, speaking of Peter Wayland, was it always the plan to bring back Lance Henriksen? Yes. I wanted a link to the Alien movies. Predator movies are all contemporary, present-day movies, but Alien was always set in the future. I'm like, well, how do you have a link with the future and now? I thought bringing Lance back would be the best way to do it. The implication was that the androids were eventually based on his likeness. I don't know how accurate this is, but I've read that James Cameron and Ridley Scott were working on a new Alien film around the same time as AVP. Is that true? And if so, why couldn't we have gotten both? That's not something I really know about, he says, so I can't really comment. I do know that Cameron said AVP was his 3rd favourite movie with an alien in it, which, considering he made one and Ridley Scott made one, was very high praise. Cameron says loads of shit. Shut up. Would you make AVP any differently? I kind of like the way we did it, to be honest, because it was a very cool mix of practical and CG. So basically, no, like, he's happy with it as it is, effectively. So no. There's a little bit more in that was interesting. So he says, do you think there's a way to make a purely AVP movie without any humans? I think so. Potentially it would be a pretty striking film, a non-dialogue, almost silent movie. It's a very exciting and interesting idea. I think the AVP franchise had continued, there would have been room for that kind of exploration. Sure, fine. What would your vision be for those respective planets? Probably pretty striking and pretty bleak. If Hollywood's taught us anything, it's that no franchise is ever really dead. Do you have any advice for the eventual reboot of AVP? Just have fun with it. I know I did. It was a real treat. It was like working with the two biggest movie stars in the world, but they both smelled of rubber. It was definitely a career highlight for me. At the time, I said to all of the human actors in it, really enjoy this because you're becoming part of a pop culture phenomenon. That's fair. That's fair. There are going to be other Alien and Predator movies, which means AVP is always going to be revisited, repackaged, and repositioned. Which is true. It's wonderful being a part of that, and it keeps the work alive and in people's minds, even when it's 20 years old. So there you go. There's not a lot else to say. It's an interesting interview. What do you think? Let me know down below. Take care. Bye-bye now.